few more seconds. I can just see the numbers keep going up. We usually get, what do we usually get up, about 70 or 80? Might not make that today.
Yep. No, I won't get there today. It's being recorded.
It is being recorded. So maybe we'll kick off. It's by my clock 10:01. Love to see some more faces. It'd be great if we can have some cameras on. As many of you will know, I love good chat. If you want to share some memes or GIFs, best one will be shouted a coffee. And if anybody can spot my Pride and Prejudice Easter egg in the presentation today, a coffee is yours as well. Don't shout it out to tell me after. So a bit of an agenda today. I can get the PowerPoint to work. So today we've got acknowledgement of country. I'll lead that. I want to share with you a little bit of an update and some work, a new focus on customer privacy and safety, and share some sort of insights and sort of sector-wide impacts. EA update will come courtesy of Daniel, as Christina is in leadership training. We'll have an AMOS update. I'll run through the scorecard and, of course, people recognition and finally questions. So we'll get started. So first of all, I would like to recognise and respect the traditional owners and custodians of the lands that we serve. So we pay our respects to all traditional elders, both past and present, and we are committed to a positive future of self-determination by Aboriginal people and their communities. And while today we recognise and we serve the people of the Yorta Yorta and Taungurung, many of us at GV Water join us from different communities across Australia. So today I wanted to introduce you to the place I called home for much of my childhood, being a little place that's a lot bigger these days, called Pambula, which is on the far south coast of New South Wales, so not too far over the border from Victoria. Pambula and the surrounding coastal areas, from probably up to around north past Ulladulla and as south as Eden, form part of the Yuin Nation. So on this map, it's might be a little bit small. There's a sort of narrow yellow strip down there, right near the bottom on the right, along the coast of New South Wales, and that is the Yuin Nation. Some people may be really familiar with this area. It's known for beautiful beaches, estuaries, and native forests. A real local icon in the area when I was growing up was the Pambula River mouth. So surrounded by beautiful national park, it marks where the Pambula River and lake meet the Pacific Ocean. It has some of the best preserved middens on the east coast. So along where you can see that photo there, right along there are a number of really well preserved middens, which, as many people know, are mounds of shells left by Indigenous groups, usually oyster shells down on this particular piece of coast. It's oysters going back several thousand years. The waters around the area are a source of a lot of industry and have been for many years. So starting with whaling in the 1790s, tuna fishing through the 1940s to the 1990s. And now the waters all around this area now support tourism, sailing, fishing, as well as oyster farming. So the photo there below is a photo from Merimbula, where the lake meets the ocean, and you can see some of the oyster farms there. So many of the towns up and down the coast can be linked really closely to local Indigenous languages. Places like Ulladulla, Narooma, Maruya are all based on Indigenous words. The term Bula, so as in Merimbula and Pambula, come from a local Indigenous language for two waters. So either two waters, I've heard a couple of different definitions, or where two more waters meet. So the rivers and lakes meeting the sea in both Pambula and Merimbula. So I was reminiscing a little bit and recalling my time growing up in the area. I left permanently, somewhat at about 14. And our local high school, we had some local Indigenous slang terms that were used within the school. And one in particular I remembered, and I called my sister actually to say, am I making this up? And she absolutely remembered it as well, is word Gila. So we used to, that was a term used by both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal students. And at that time meant, well, kind of bultish. So somebody was just joking or telling you a bit of a scam story. Gila would be the word that you would use. And doing some research, I found it's not actually a word local to the Yuin Nation, but actually comes from the Wominjara people in Western Australia and is a word for living waters or springs. So I thought that was really interesting, and lots of links to water, both there, obviously in the natural environment and in some of the language used in the area. And maybe something for GVW, I know we have, but what are some more opportunities to create awareness and adoption of local Indigenous languages, even some of their more slang terms? So thank you. Any questions on that? If you can make your way up that coast, it's a beautiful place to be. So today I wanted to take you through a bit of a new lens on customer privacy and safety, not just here at GVW, but right across the water sector in Victoria, and in fact right across Australia, and take you through a little bit of the context on why we are taking a different lens to customer information privacy and safety, and some of the drivers for that. So I want to take you through today, first of all, what happened. So what happened to initiate this change, or this real focus on customer information privacy? And it sort of stemmed, at least in Victoria, from 2 privacy breaches at South East Water. So this happened, I think, around early 2023. It's not exactly sure. And both of those customers were impacted by family violence, and both of those customers escalated to our ombudsman, being EWOV, about their experiences with South East Water. That resulted in quite a bit of media and eventually an enforceable undertaking, which I'll take you through a little bit more as we go. So first of all, I quickly want to go through, well, what is family violence, because sometimes we have a pretty narrow view of what we mean by family violence, but our definition, which aligns right across Victoria and is contained in our family violence policy, is any behaviour or behaviour by a person to a family member that includes physical or sexual abusive behaviour, emotionally or psychologically abusive, economically abusive, threatening or coercive, controlling or dominating. And it also incorporates elder abuse. So it's not probably what we're seeing a lot in the media today. It's not just contained. Obviously, it's very clearly to protect intimate relationship violence, physical violence, but it's a lot broader definition than just that. On average, family violence can occur in up to 1 in 6 homes that we service. In some statistics, they even say 1 in 4. And if we take our population, if we take the homes that we serve today, that could be in excess of 10,000 of our homes in our region are impacted at one stage or another by family violence. While we have very few customers who have informed us that they need additional account protection, we've only got about 60 customers who have requested we secure their accounts. You'll see that's just a fraction of the potential that's happening in our communities. So a little bit what's happened at South East Water, because it wasn't as simple as somebody called and we gave somebody an address. It had the 2 examples we have. One covers a sort of a manual back office process, and one actually covers some automation that was put into a new digital solution. So the first one, we had Kitty. Kitty had not paid her home account. She'd opened a new account. The mail was returned to sender back to South East Water. through some investigation or tracing by South East Water, the accounts team found that Kitty, her name and details were also as on a business account with South East Water. They updated that mailing address, sent on the bill. The bill was sent to the business address, and the son, who in this instance was the perpetrator of the family violence, worked at the business, opened the mail, and then had the new address for his mother. The second case, a little bit different, but we had a real estate agent. South East Water have a portal used by real estate agents. They registered Lydia as a tenant via the portal. The portal requires the agent to provide 2 contacts to create the account. The account agent only had Lydia, so only just added Lydia twice. South East Water's system automatically said, oh, this is not quite right. We can match this to a previous account that Lydia had, and it put her ex-partner's details in the account. When Lydia forgot to pay her bill, the SMS reminder not only went to Lydia, but also went to her ex-partner, who then had her new address details. So 2 very different scenarios there. And as you see, none of the actions taken by South East Water were malicious. And in fact, a really good lesson learned from this portal example is sometimes a drive to customer experience and simplifying processes for customers or real estate agents can actually have an inadvertent impact. So what happened next? So in both cases, South East Water, and this is pretty broadly recognised, did everything they could to support those customers, including relocating those customers and putting them in touch with other support. So absolutely, they did all they could once they'd found out what had occurred to support those customers. Both customers approached EWOV to complain, and EWOV escalated that to our regulator being the ESC, and the ESC undertook an investigation, and South East Water became subjected to an enforceable undertaking. And an enforceable undertaking is basically a contract or an agreement that you're going to do a number of prescribed activities or actions, and if you do not, you can go to court. So in this case, South East Water's enforceable undertaking required them to do a really substantial review, audit, change of all of their processes, engage an independent advisor, engage an independent auditor. I think it's going to run over about 12 to 18 months, or might even be 2 years. So they're not out of it yet, but it's a really intensive process. And I've, at my previous organisation, have been in the middle of an ESC undertaking, enforceable undertaking, and it's a pretty rigorous process and can be both very impactful for the business and very costly. After that, the ESC went to all the water businesses and put on notice to say that you need to treat all customers as if they were impacted by family violence. The 2 customers that were South East Water impacted had not declared they were family violence. So ESC had said, you know what, it's not enough to protect customers who have declared. You must assume all customers could be impacted by family violence and that they get the same protections. So the really strong message is all customer information, privacy and safety must be protected at all times. And this is actually relevant for probably most of us here at GVW, because not only are we employees at GVW, we are customers. So we have customer information in our systems, and that's a special privilege that we have within our business, and we need to absolutely protect that at all times. So what happened next? Going further than that, the ESC made some changes, and from the 1st of April, they've put in a new obligation for all water corporations in Victoria to notify the ESC if they have a non-compliance with our standards that could harm our customers. So while we're working to kind of better define this with the ESC to understand the scope of the services and define what does it mean by harm to customers, and we're working through that. But very obviously, it relates to family violence and life support customers. So if we were to inadvertently impact them, say disconnect a customer whose life support, do a planned interruption for a customer whose life support, not protect the information of a family violence customer, we must notify ESC within about 2 days, and then we will be subject, obviously, to a remediation plan and progress from there. Still a bit to work through. And we are working across our functions to identify those key areas of risk. And this is not a customer team problem entirely to solve. It's going to impact pretty much all departments to some extent. There'll be more to come on that. So what does this mean right now? So what has GVW been doing? So right now, what we're really wanting to enforce and encourage with all of our teams right across the business is our rules and processes are in place to protect our customers' privacy. We cannot make exceptions to our processes, even if we think we are acting in customers' best interests. So I'm looking at the retail customer and billing team. We know that they work with customers day in, day out. We have family members who are genuinely trying to help, say, their elderly mother, or genuinely wanting to find information about their account on a joint account. But we must follow our processes to only share customer information with customers and authorised parties. So we're really becoming a lot tighter on that. We've made some other steps to remove customer information off mobile devices and a range of other actions. We've obviously been reviewing very closely our family violence procedures and training, and we've done some recent refreshing of that training. We've recently refreshed our policy, but we need to critically review all of our customer interaction processes. So that is happening now. We've identified our high-risk processes to ensure that they are not only are they absolutely embedded with safety and privacy, they are documented really well, and we're able to train our teams and make that really accessible and for people to comply with. Things like authorised person process, for example, is something we have already had a good review and we're making some changes. But if you can think of another process in your group that should be within that review and revision process, please raise that with Lori-Anne. We are also revisiting some of our other planned customer initiatives just to ensure that we've embedded privacy and safety right into those products or new services. So an example here, I'll give you 2 examples. We've always had across the sector, a big drive to push customers to e-billing, both as an efficiency benefit, but also a customer preference. We are rolling that back a little bit. If customers want e-billing, yes, we'll provide that, but we want to make sure that we've got the right processes that are validating email addresses, that we are ensuring that one email address on a joint account is assigned to the right person on that account. So we're putting a bit of a pause in the e-billing space. We've also put a pause on providing a portal for customers to see their water usage through our intelligent meters. That information can be really, really rich. We want to make sure the right people can see that information, but even seeing access to usage information, you might be thinking, what do I care if somebody sees how much water I'm using? It actually can be a really rich source of information to say if people are home, how many people might be in the home, if that person is away on holiday. So again, we want to look at that again really critically before we release that to customers. And absolutely, this part of my message today is to remain really vigilant. Perpetrators of family violence, they're not obvious, they're not always identifiable. They can be really clever and really creative in finding ways to access information. So you'll hear more about this, but that's my ask of you today. Last thing I wanted to put here, and this actually was from Yarra Valley Water. They've had a real sort of light bulb moment, which I think is for us as well. And it kind of goes to what occurred at Southeast Water is an absolute focus on making life easy and an experience that is really seamless for customers. Really obviously has been our priority as a sector for a long time and will remain so. However, there are implications for customer safety, and in some cases we are going to make a call which is maybe not the best for customer satisfaction but best supports customer safety. My team are sick of me talking about my horrible experience with RACV recently, trying to get access to information on a insurance policy that I created, that I paid for, but was in my husband's name. Really was unsatisfactory customer experience, but I understood it was to protect the safety and privacy of both myself and my husband in that case. I've got a question there from Duncan. Me and my brothers have enduring power of attorney for mum and dad. What is the procedure to have this reflected in Kuwait? So Duncan, please call the retail customer and billing team. There is an authorised person process that you need to be, you'll need to be an authorised person on that account, and there is a procedure to do that. An example of a recent shift we're making in that space is we're ensuring that that authorised person has a time limit on it, right? So we are ensuring that those aren't just forever, that you've got an authorised person. We are putting some extra checks when customers call us to ensure that those are right. But good question, Duncan. If there's any questions about that, please raise them in the chat. We'll have time at the end today, and feel free to reach out to myself or Lorianne. I'm just going to pop over to Daniel. He's going to give us an update on the EA. Over to you, Daniel.
Thanks, Emma. So if you just move on to the next slide.
I have. Can you guys not see it? Yep. There's a nod.
Yeah, got that. Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Yep, thanks. So I've actually got some good news to present today. So we've been working on the EA negotiation since July last year, and we've met pretty much every second week since then to go through the negotiating process. And at last Friday's meeting, around the table, we actually got to in principle agreement on the new agreement. Which just at last Friday, we just had one of the parties who needed to go back to their members, but in principle, subject to their members, willing to give in principle. So that'll then be the start date for the new agreement after it goes through all the processes. So we've had since July around 20 meetings. We've had up to 22 people around the table each time, with a few management representatives. Representatives from the Australian Services Union, Professionals Australia, and a number of staff representatives. And we've also had quite a few staff from the HR team there at each meeting to help guide us through with helping support us with what we can and do in relation to different clauses. So some of the key benefits from the new agreement. So there'll be salary increases and one-off payments. So there'll be 4 years of 3% increases of salary. There'll be a $1,283 one-off payment, which can be paid right at the start. And there'll also be some back pay back to when the previous agreement ended. So so as soon as we get this through, there'll be some payments available and salary increases. A number of different allowances that we currently have been part of the negotiation. There's been increases to some of those allowances. And we've also, there have been some additional allowances negotiated along the way as well. So there'll be some other areas where there's a few increases. Leave's been quite a heavy topic of different claims that have been put forward. So there are some new leave types that have been negotiated, and also some increases in number of days available as part of some other existing types of leave. And a lot of these changes are around being more inclusive with leave policy, with leave provisions. So once you get to see the full detail, you'll see where some of those leave provisions will be changing. So at this point, we've got in principle agreement from the internal parties and the external parties around the table, but we still need to go through a process to get government sign off on the agreement. So that's why we're a bit light on this slide today, that we don't give you the full absolute rundown of every little change. So what we've got to do now is draft up in the full detail every one of those clauses, get those to the government and get sign off, and then we'll be able to give staff the full package. But the representatives who've been around the table are across what the detail will be in those clause changes. So if we just move on to the next slide, Emma. So where we're at in the process is where that red circle is there on the screen in the middle. So we've got in principle agreement. We now need approval from DECA, IRV, Treasury and Finance, so a few different government departments about the agreement. All the way through, Christina's been checking off different clauses that have been coming up and changes with DECA. So there should be no surprises for them in what's getting proposed, but it's still, yeah, we've just got to have that sign off that they agree with some of the changes, and what they'll be checking is that they're consistent with wages policy and what's adopted in other similar government organisations. So that's the key things they'll be checking off. But yeah, we're pretty confident about those just due to the consultation we've had to date. Once those government approvals come through, that's where we can actually go to staff for a vote. And that vote will be an online voting system, which I think we had last time as well. So those who are around then might remember that. So once we get the government approvals, we'll have the internal voting, and we need a majority of staff plus one, so 50% plus one for the agreement to be approved. And if we get that from the staff vote, it can go then to Fair Work Australia for final approval. And when the Fair Work Australia approval comes through, that becomes when the payments can go through. So a couple of steps still to get through, but yeah, I guess everyone should know that now we've got agreement. Yeah, and hopefully we can move through these government approvals as fast as we can to get this all the way through. So I can either take any questions on that now, or we can wait till the end, if there are any.
Right.
No, don't see any popping up.
All right. Still with you, Daniel, with a bit of an update on AMOS or Maximo. Yes.
So again, yeah, good news here is that, and you've probably all seen through the different staff updates, that Maximo is now live as part of the AMOS project. So the project teams, delivered and got us to this point where we've got a live product, and it's now over to our asset management team with Mark and Grant and Dale and others to now get this deployed for our different maintenance activities through the organisation. And you'll see on the screen there, we're doing that in a bit of a staged approach to roll out Maximo for our different maintenance functions. So the first one that we've got going at the moment is mechanical and electrical. And what we're doing as we roll this out is we're finding a few bugs as we go. We've got a few defects to fix. We also get ideas of what could we do to make this easier out in the field. So as we go through, we're addressing those items. And what that's doing though is that'll then have flow-on effects as we work through the next step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That it'll be a bit iterative. So we'll make some improvements, but then those improvements will apply for all the different types of maintenance. So it's actually going to get easier as we roll through rolling out the different maintenance programs. So the second one we'll tackle will be waste management facilities and water treatment plants, then water quality and trade waste, and then finally onto sewer retic and water retic. So, but by the time we get through to water retic, we'll have ironed out all the bugs all the way through. So by that stage, we should have a really good product with a lot of additional improvements in it that haven't been there at step 1, but will be there by step 6. So this is going to take a few months for the team to roll through each of these stages, and particularly staff in service delivery who will be impacted as we get to each stage and Maximo becomes available for the type of maintenance that you do, you'll be well and truly consulted and know when those timeframes are coming up, and if you need extra training, get extra training. So so get in touch with myself or Mark Lonarchy or Grant Barry if you want to know more about where that's up to and how it's happening. So if we just move on to the next one, Emma. So system is go live. So we're live and functioning, and this is a bit of just information to show you, yep, this is working and things are happening. So we've got 12 types of different service requests already registered, so 12 different types of work that we can perform in the system. We've rolled out some of those. There's still a few things to tidy up with some of those before they get rolled out, but they're in the system. There's already been 427 work orders created through the system. We've got 399 different job plans registered for once we roll out inspections. 334 different routes created, so that's where inspections will move to Maximo, and you'll move around a site doing different inspections. So that's a route around that site, which it's set up to hopefully be efficient about how you go and do your different inspections. We've got 148,000 different asset locations registered in the system, and there's 352,000 individual assets that we'll be able to do maintenance on, and that's such a big number because of all the pipe assets and how they're broken down. But so, that's a massive step forward for us, that for every single asset that's out there, we'll be able to perform maintenance on it and be able to record that and then get the data back to know how that asset's performing, which is going to be a real big step forward for us in being able to plan our maintenance and also plan our renewal and preventive maintenance programs. So that's where the real value is going to be. Once we can roll out the work orders, get the maintenance done on all those different assets and find out how they're performing, and then turn that into better optimized programs for both for maintenance and for renewal. So that's a bit of a snapshot of where we're up to, and just stay tuned for those staff involved in different types of maintenance as Maximo will get rolled out to you, and over the next few months you'll gradually hear about that and be able to use it in your teams.
Great, thanks, Daniel. Good update. If everybody's got questions, I'll move along to the next one. I see, Chris, you've got a question there. I'll pop that through for when we get to questions. But a really big program, really big impact, and it's going to have some great benefits for the business and for customers. So I'll quickly just go on to the corporate scorecard. I know it can be a little bit little for others. No great change from last month. So the digital program expenditure due to CRM billing project being paused. We know we were under target for staff engagement. We've got a few ambers on strategic reporting. Today, I just want to touch more on this sewer network reliability. So 2 out of 4 sewer metrics are above target and won't be met. It's not recoverable this year. Bit of an update from Dan Flanagan. So one of them was around our time to rectify blockages. So we're at 130 minutes versus 120, so not a significant part over target. And we have a 100% target on spills contained within 5 hours, which is a really, really big target, and we've had 3 outside that time. So we obviously can't recover that this year, but worth just highlighting those. If there's any questions around the corporate scorecard, please let me know. Now we come to what is my favourite part of the agenda, which is staff recognition, and I'm going to hand over to Steve to highlight our dream team members this month.
Is there any pressure with those build-ups, Emma? That's been the favourite part, but always pleased to present at this part of the agenda. I just want to say thanks. There's a couple of really good items that were shared today. The update on the EA, the Maximo summary, and also to you, Emma. Thanks for taking us through the detail of the challenges around privacy family violence and what that means for our business. I think that was really worthwhile spending a few minutes talking through that and learning from the experience at Southeast Water. I know that that did have a significant impact on their organisation, and as you say, you know, the sort of fairly innocuous set of circumstances led to that exposure of information, but I think the outcomes for the broader sector are really important, and it's great that you and your team are leading the charge with securing that for us. So thanks very much. But yeah, getting on to values, which is my bit of the agenda. There's sort of two to call out today. The first one, if we just flick to that next slide, is around service excellence and open communication. And congratulations, Kirsten Hogan, who's done some wonderful work over quite a long period of time. This is a fair bit involved in this piece that sort of converged or came to a head, if you like, just very recently. There was the National Ozwater Conference where Kirsten was front and centre presenting this work. And the essence of this work is that when you need to get more out of your wastewater treatment plant, you can do various upgrades in a traditional sense. But what Kirsten has done has sort of led us down an alternative pathway, something called nature-based solutions, where you can look more broadly at the environment around the wastewater treatment plant and try and take advantage of aspects of the natural environment and let the environment do some of the work for you, which I was interested to see was something that we were able to do out at Kilmore, hadn't been done by anyone else in Victoria. So, you know, a bit risky, a bit innovative, but, you know, fantastic work for leaning into that and making that project a success. One of the really key parts, though, of these nature-based solutions, and certainly in this case at Kilmore, is that it requires a fair bit of land, and therefore you need to negotiate and engage and bring a lot of the local landholders along the journey to be involved. And you know, the whole team has done a wonderful job of developing the relationships, explaining the objectives, talking about some of the impacts, so that those local stakeholders were on board along the journey. So, you know, if you think about the pathways you can take to improving the performance of a wastewater treatment plant or upgrading it, you know, there's the traditional one, which probably requires a lot less of that engagement and stakeholder interaction, or this particular pathway, which takes a lot more, but in an environmental sense is a far better outcome. So all of that that work and that story was presented at Ozwater recently, which, as I said, sort of creates a bit of a crescendo for this this bit of innovation, and Kirsten did a wonderful job of engaging all of the people in the room that were part of that conversation. So, yeah, I guess a few layers in this example of values of sort of service excellence, of stakeholders, of sort of innovation and future thinking, all sort of wrapped into one. But yeah, great achievement. Well done, Kirsten. I think that's wonderful for our organisation, and wonderful for the environment. And I guess in time there'll be a lot of beneficiaries of that innovative piece of work. Right, next one is service excellence again, with a couple of other elements of value brought in. And Thomas Mapley in our digital team has done some fantastic work of late in the digital operations space, but also relating to Maximo and the AMOS project that Daniel referred to recently. You know, there's a lot of integration, there's a lot of connectivity that's required between various data sets around the business, and the quality of that data and the cleanliness of that. Access, yeah, a lot of complex hard work, and I think Tom has gone above and beyond in solving problems as they have arisen, and that sort of led to the soft launch that Donna and the team were able to drive just very recently. The other dot point there, the third one, is around system access and the shortening of the time period to be able to get on the system, and I think that is, as it says, that's a significant productivity opportunity, probably reduces a bit of frustration for those that are wanting to get system access to do various pieces of work. And, you know, those little improvements really add up when you talk about an organisation of our size. And, you know, if we can keep chipping away with these sorts of innovations in our digital portfolio in the digital space, I think that's setting us up really well for the future. So yes, the last sentence there, we've got a long way to go. We've got great ambitions with digital, but these sort of spurts of effort and activity driven by people like Tom and others in our digital team just make that journey that much shorter, and arrival at that destination that much more quickly. So thanks very much, Tom. Great work. Really appreciate your input, and a very worthy recipient of recognition this month. So that's it, folks. There's two wonderful recognitions there. Happy to take questions on that or anything else that we've talked about today, but I'll hand that back to you, Emma, to facilitate Q&A, and happy to be involved in any of that.
Thanks, Steve. So there'll be a coffee for anybody who knows which 80s classic movie that one is. We've had a couple of questions come through from Chris Murdoch in the chat. So Chris, your first one around impacts of the EA for defined benefit members. Kate or Christina are not in the meeting today, but I'll make sure that they can follow up with an answer to that question. Chris also asked about a really, really good question. So around how difficult is it to manage privacy customer privacy between real estate agents and other authorities. So look, we don't have all the answers, but that's absolutely, there's two really big areas of risk that need a lot of work, which is around real estate agents and conveyancers as well. So we don't have all the answers yet, Chris. I think we are working with other water sector corporations to learn from them who are maybe a little bit further progressed, particularly South East Water have been really open, Yarra Valley Water have been really open with their challenges and their solutions, and we'll be learning from that. But this is definitely a journey of, you know, right through our processes when we start to look at our new CRM and billing system. In one way, we're really fortunate that we haven't put one in yet, because many of those organisations are having to re-engineer some of those newly implemented CRM billing and portal systems to account for this increased focus and some of the increased risk. So don't have all the answers yet, but you've nailed it there. Real estate agents is one area of real risk that we're working through. Yes, Breakfast Club, well done, Chris. We're both showing our age. You maybe a little more so with your defined benefits question. Is there any other questions? The 65 age, definitely not Pretty in Pink. Yeah, I didn't know about Pretty in Pink. Wasn't that keen on it. All right, one more minute for questions. What's great is I'm showing these movies to my kids and they're enjoying them too. Well, they say that to me anyway, but maybe they just want me to pay for everything, so they're being polite. Yeah, we do like Molly Ringwald. She was good. Very good. All right, there's no questions there. I mean, always feel free to reach out after the meeting. Chris, I'll get HR to follow up yours, but thank you for everyone today. Sometimes it can feel like we're talking into the void, but great to see some chat. Love to see some chat going throughout the meeting. And thanks again. Have a good day.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks, everyone.
Who's watching Rear Window, Nick? God, film, that and Gaslight.